This is Project 1. My name is Penelope Roman Asiego. Today is 6/29/2025. Our semester is summer 2025, the second half. This is the Juvenile Justice Administration class. Here on this website is where I found all of my information. This is the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. Here in this tab, Research and Statistics, Statistical Briefing Book, I was able to find the frequently asked questions. Here, there's different topics. As you can see, I clicked through a few of these and was able to get some questions and answers. So let's start off with 5 facts about the general juvenile population in the US. First, 1/3 of victims of child maltreatment were under the age of 4, and of those victims, most of those were under 1. Non-prescription use of opioids among high school seniors has declined since 2002, and in 2020, there was about 424,300 juveniles under the age of 18 arrested, which was 71% less arrests reported in 2011. In 2022, probation was ordered in 52% of delinquency cases that resulted in a juvenile court sanction. 8% of known murder offenses were committed by juvenile offenders in 2020. A few questions that I have were, was the decrease in arrests of juveniles caused by the pandemic? In 2020, there was a decrease in arrests of juveniles due to the coronavirus, restricting people from going out, and also these stay-at-home orders that limited law-violating behaviors. Has the number of juveniles involved in homicide decreased throughout the years? No. So between 1994 and 2003, there was a significant decrease in juvenile offenders involved in homicide. However, between the early 2000s and now, there was an increase. And in the last year, there was an increase of 30% of murders by juveniles. Has there been a change in juvenile substance abuse throughout the years? Yes, substance abuse has decreased between the 1990s to 2020. However, the use of marijuana over the use of alcohol and cigarettes has increased, and vaping was not part of this report, but I believe it is more significant than cigarette use now. The reasoning behind sending juveniles to adult court is to create a punishment system, so it will punish repeat or violent offenders to protect the community and society. And once you were tried as an adult, the juvenile will be tried as an adult in the future. By creating these harsher punishments, juveniles are demotivated from violating the law, therefore decreasing juvenile crime. The mechanisms of sending a juvenile to adult court starts with a judicial waiver, which is based on the severity of the offense, and a judge would decide whether this is necessary. There is also statutory exclusion, which automatically requires that the juvenile be sent to adult court due to the offense or age. Age is important because the maximum and minimum age for a juvenile to be tried in criminal court depends on the state. The prosecutor can also choose that the juvenile be sent to adult court, and this is called a direct file or a prosecutorial discretion. The case flow diagram that I attached here below shows the different stages of processing a delinquency case in the juvenile justice system and where they can be diverted. When arrested, law enforcement can divert the juvenile out of the justice system depending on their history. So that is up to law enforcement here, or it can be from non-law enforcement sources such as a school or the juvenile's parents. So they will cause diversion, which is where the majority of juveniles will be taken out of detention or the criminal justice system before they get to any of this. If they are taken into the juvenile justice system, they are put into secure custody for no longer than 6 hours and in an area away from adult inmates where they are not seen or heard. In juvenile court intake, there can be an informal processing where if there is not sufficient evidence for a case, there will be diversion here. or an informal informal agreement, which can be created, including probation, school attendance, drug counseling, and the youth would have to agree to this so they can be taken out. They need to comply for the case to be dismissed, but if they do not, then the case is referred for an adjunctory hearing. So then they would be taken to court or formal processing. During a formal processing, the youth will be in a detention facility and can either be released or remain detained. The prosecutor also has a chance to file this case in criminal court if the offense is serious, like we discussed earlier, where there will be prosecutorial discretion. During a formal processing, there is many ways that a juvenile can be taken to criminal justice system or they can be dismissed here. A disposition will be created if the youth is an adjudicated delinquent, and several disposition recommendations will be presented to a judge. And then this can include probation, community service or victim restitution, detention, or a residential placement. So the disposition will show where the youth will be taken. So residential placement would be here. Here is probation and other things that a youth can do to be dismissed or released here. And after being released, the youth will follow aftercare or parole. If they do not follow the conditions set, they will be returned to the institution here, aftercare, or they will be taken into the criminal justice system. So they need to follow in order to be dismissed. If they don't, they'll have to go right back. And that is the case flow diagram and the stages of how juveniles are processed